And we're going to go to the second part of the tweets of the week. And this is going to be dealing with Matrix Analytical, what you guys have done, what you do with working with coaches, working with, football ops people and ADs. And this is a tweet that you sent out on November 27th of 2022. All of our thanks and appreciation to Athletic Director Trev Alberts for the honor of trusting us to be part of the process for Husker Football Nation. It was an intensely diligent process that left no data stone unturned. Congratulations, Coach Matt Rhule, and let's go Big Red. It was. I mean, if anyone remembers the opening day press conference that when Coach Rhule was announced, when Trev came up and talked, he actually mentioned early on something along the lines of analytics. He didn't name you guys by name, but he said, we worked with an analytics group. Well, it was you guys. You guys also worked with Auburn this offseason. First off, just what does it mean to you? I'm going to say this as a Husker fan. So, because there's some things I know that are proprietary, we can't get into certain things when we're talking, but just as a Husker fan, as we mentioned earlier, what did it mean to you to get that chance to work with Nebraska on such a monumental hire?
Oh man, it was a blessing. It really was a blessing, but it was a little bit more serious than the other coaching searches I helped. I was like, okay. Because I'm a season ticket holder, we go to as many games as we can get up there for. So I'm thinking, okay, if I give bad data, if I'm feeding bad data to Trev, I not only am I going to suffer for it, but the whole 80,000 people in attendance are going to suffer for it too. Got to get this right. So it's a lot more pressure than just, I take pride with every program we work with, trying to do the best we can for every client. But there is something special about when the home school comes calling and asks for assistance. That was really something truly special.
Mm-hmm. How different, without getting into specifics of this programs like this and this programs like that, how different is the job that you guys do from one school to the next? Are the processes very similar, or have you had ones where, wow, this is so different working with school X versus school Y versus school Z?
Well, we worked with seven FBS programs this year in this offseason so far, and the five out of the Power Five and 2 out of the Group of 5. And every one of them does things a little bit different. Some athletic directors, they will have their list ready to go, that this is the list they want to work on. They don't want to hear any outside names outside their list. They just want to help us filter that list and help, just be a tool to help them compare. I mean, they're dealing with a 1,000-piece puzzle, and we are only 3 pieces of that 1,000-piece puzzle. So our job is to help them better see the picture that they're trying to put together. Although we realize we're not the whole picture. I mean, we're just a tool in their toolbox to kind of help them filter the data that they have at their fingertips. So other athletic directors will have a short list, but they want us to add our recommendations to guys that we think should be on their list but aren't. And then other athletic directors have come to us and said, "We got nobody. Give us a top 5, and we'll go through and we'll have a discussion back and forth on who fits our culture, our program, and we'll go from there." So it's very, every athletic director is different. Every athletic director has a different personality, and their personality usually comes through in their process and how they really handle their business with the programs that they're representing.
So with an example where they're giving you a blank slate, essentially.
Yeah.
I guess has there ever been a situation where they literally don't give you any criteria and you just like list your top 5 or top 10 coaches that are available, or has it always been more of a conversation of like, okay, so tell me what you're looking for, and then we will craft our recommendations based off of like some criteria just like that you want, right, from an experience or offensive philosophy or anything like that?
We've done a little bit of both. There has been a couple times, and this is our 6th year of doing this. There have been times in the past where there have been no criteria. The first question we had to go in with was, "Hey, what's our budget?" What's your budget look like? What names can we chase? What names are just not going to happen here? And then that's our criteria. That's the only criteria we have is a budget, and we'll go out and we'll form a list of 10 to 15 candidates for them with that budget, and we kind of use just some not analytical data necessarily, but some just knowledge of their institution, and say you don't want to necessarily pair a coach in the Southeast who's never coached in the Southeast before. Mm-hmm. Only coached on the West Coast or in the Northwest. You don't want to do that. So you want to kind of use some common sense in that aspect. But there's those blank slates. Those usually end up into some pretty wild nights and pretty interesting conversations. So
yeah, I could imagine. I mean, that's really interesting. Well, has there been and I'm monopolizing the questions, guys, so boomers jump in, but
you're good.
But like with the criteria, when it's a blank slate, for example, what have you found are the most telling metrics criteria for a successful coach? Right? As there's certain things that always kind of bubble up and you're like, oh, these 2 or 3 things characteristic wise or we're always going to look for. And then maybe you start to then from a geography or other things kind of start to narrow it down. What are the most significant criteria for a successful head coaching search?
One of the flags we look for first is just progression, year-over-year progression. When a coach takes a program over, you don't want to see negative progression. That's you don't want to see regression. You see throughout his career, no matter how many stops he's been at, you want to see, okay, what's that first year look like, and then how quickly does he build on that first year? And also, it kind of going into that as well is, what did he take over? What was he walking into? And what did he do with the pieces that he was given to take off with there? Mm-hmm. So progression is really the first analytics number we look at in a coach, and it's one that if there's over the course of a coach's career, if he shows a regression number there, year-over-year regression, that's a big red flag. That's okay. This guy's maybe taken over some good situations and just kind of rode them out and improved.
You see that, yeah.
You don't want that guy. You want a guy who's taken over something and has been able to improve year over year on what he's been able to accomplish.
That would seem to be a good sign with Coach Rhule and where he has been in the past in college football, certainly. And that is something we've talked about. We've joked about it a little bit with the percentages. Boomer, I know Boomer's our resident statistician, and people will sit there and say he's a career 500 coach, but he took over programs, went 1-10, and got to 10-1 or 11-1, and so that's going to average 50%. But it's to your point there. Have you left a place better than what you took over? And you said earlier, common sense, and I think that when I heard that, immediately the word that came to my mind, which you hear a lot in these coaching searches, is fit. And is it a good fit, bad fit, whatever? And I'm going to use 2 examples, and I'm just using them for reference. It's not about these 2 guys, but Coach Rhule at Nebraska, you hear a lot about him being a good fit. And then you hear Dion going to Boulder, and it being, is that a good fit? Is he, he's from the Southeast. Is he going to fit into the Pac-12? Fit becomes, that's the word that we hear. So I'm going to reference what I said earlier about stars and recruiting. What does a star mean? Well, to you, what does fit mean? And is that something? Do you guys have a fit analytics? An analytic for fit, or how do you guys kind of clarify what fit is with a coach to a school?
Well, it all comes back to recruiting. Okay, you don't want to put a coach in that's a good example. Okay, for example, Mike Riley, when he was up really humming at Oregon State. Okay. You wouldn't have never taken him and put him at Florida State. Mm-hmm. All his recruiting, all his relationships were on the West Coast and the Pacific Northwest. You're not going to take that guy, put him down in Tallahassee, and expect him to be able to hire guys that know the area quickly and be able to put together a good recruiting plan in a place he's never been, in a place that Abby, you're funny. You're not going to do that because it's that doesn't fit. That you're setting that coach up for failure. You're setting that program up for failure. Another example of this would be someone like, you're not going to take. Let's think of another one here. You're not going to take. Well, I can't think of another one off the top of my head.
Adam, I got a joke I can insert here. This is kind of like not trying to fit Honky into a size 34 jeans, right?
Well, depending on the year and the time of year.
I am unfamiliar with Honky's waistline, so
I was a lot closer to that. I was a lot closer to that back in October, and then now.
Yeah, darn how it is. Yeah.
Hey man, things change. I just go with the flow.
Change. Good point, Honky. Yeah.
I had a question, Adam, when it comes to analyzing coaches, and we can use Rhule as an example of this, where you're looking at a coach that previously coached in college and hasn't for a few years. How do you, given the changes with like NIL and transfer portal and things they may not have dealt with as a prior coach, how do you take that into account when you're evaluating a current coach or assistant or whatever?
Well, that's kind of outside the lines for us analytically, because you don't know what that coach has been paying attention to and what he is privy to and not privy to. As far as guys coming from the NFL who have been out a little while, the NFL is so different from college as far as just the game itself. It's anything that a coach has done in the NFL, we leave that alone. That's we almost treat it like a completely different sport. Okay, we look at. If a coach is coached at the FCS level, we take that into consideration, and the FBS level. Anything outside of that, it doesn't play into our metrics at all, because you're comparing apples and oranges at that point. Now, as far as how NIL and how that kind of stuff impacts, we don't know that yet. We don't know what a coach has been paying attention to. We don't know what he's learned. In the off season and actually putting together his staff. So we kind of stay out of those discussions that we don't have any numbers for, or we don't have any opinion on, honestly.
That's interesting. And since someone like Lance Leipold, like at Wisconsin Whitewater, doesn't really fit into your metrics per se.
No, his career at Wisconsin Whitewater, we don't take that into account. Our database starts when he got to Buffalo.
Yeah,
okay.
Still good for him, but not nearly as good as winning 6 titles in 7 years there at that level. Yeah, that's interesting.